Thanks for that, Warwick. Very good talk. Just a quick one. When you were putting up the maps before where you had the blotches of drill here or target here or review here, was that the extent of the area, or was it more a state-based, here are all the targets in this area? Thank you.
So they're the targets inside the 1,600 square kilometres that it scans. And so the other systems then ask you to go and sample that, as well as other points around it, to start getting averages and means and things like that. So it's very hard to work out like a false positive rate or something like that, because unless you actually go out and drill each one of those target areas, you don't know what are the right ones and what ones are the wrong ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've got a question from Geoscience Australia. I'm just wondering, be interesting because you talk about garbage in, garbage out, but I think something that you didn't show us is the quality of the data of the areas you're scanning. As you know, there's not the same coverage of gravity magnetics and line density. So, I mean, you can deep learn or you can train a computer as much as you want, but it boils down to what data you're feeding it. And there wasn't too much about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It takes about 2 weeks just to put the data in and make sure the data's clean. We did build the system so that we can use what I call off-the-shelf data, so what we download from GSQ or QDEX or anything like that. And we think that's the best option because, you know, there is so much data out there and it's all slightly different. And so, you know, the initial system, yeah, it doesn't pinpoint everything. If it did pinpoint it, I'd be giving this presentation from my small Greek island. And so, you know, it has to be robust, you know, similar to what we do in geology and looking at the data and making that interpretations and trying to collate it across. But we've seen in our testing that it works in Queensland and it works in Western Australia fairly well. And, you know, we know that we've got a long way to go on it, but we think that, you know, we're heading in the right direction anyway.
Sue Golding from University of Queensland. I wondered why you'd restricted yourself to training using Queensland gold deposits, since rather than either a larger suite of particular deposit style or at least a couple of different end members. I mean, at some level, presumably you're teaching about hydrothermal processes, but there are differences between gold deposits and, you know, otherwise there'd be no point in having economic geologists if it was the same identical process everywhere.
The reason that we use Queensland data and Queensland mines to start with is that it's here and you know, we could check the data very easily. Like I said, yeah, we've still got a long way to go and a lot more to add to it. You know, the reason that we tried Mount Isa, I wasn't expecting anything from Mount Isa, and Western Australia was just to have a look, just to see what it would do and what it would say. And it seems to find things in Western Australia differently than it finds things in Queensland. Now, I don't know if that's a deposit difference or if that's a system difference. But, you know, we stick with what we know. It was good data, especially with the deposit database stuff. We could actually go out and validate on the ground what was there fairly easily. And so that's sort of where we are, you know, up to date with it. But yeah, we want to add, you know, a worldwide database of deposit models in it when we understand it a little bit more and keep doing the research. Oh, definitely, yep. Completely, we still need to sort of go through the data ourselves. Like I said, you know, data cleaning and putting the data in is the slowest part of the process. And you know, there's only 2 of us. You know, we do this thing on our own budget. You know, we've been down to $200 in the bank account and have had literally no money. And it's been a labour of love. You know, we got a little, you know, not massive amount of investment, so, you know, it's all come off our own dime. And so last year, you know, we started working on this full time, But on the, working on something full-time in research with no money coming in slows down the process a fair bit. So there's only so much you can do, so many sites that you can visit and things like that. So, but we're hoping to, now we've got some investment and some good interest that we can sort of accelerate that process a fair bit.
There's a couple of other companies out there that are doing this sort of thing. Goldspot comes to mind on the Abitibi and that sort of thing. One thing they did was the sort of standard thing that people do in this kind of case, which they do a training data set and a validation data set. So I really had a couple of questions. Did you follow anything kind of systematic like that to establish whether your routine was actually working? Like, because if you're searching on Queensland gold deposits, it's not surprising you might find Gympie because it's a Queensland gold deposit. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll leave my. And then the other thing I would just be interested to know is that, if somebody asked me about your talk later and said, what data did they use? I'd say, I have no idea, because you have not said a single thing about any piece of data you've used, how you processed it, what scale it's at. And I'm sure that, just looking at the list of people that are sponsoring you and people doing it, that there's some, that there's some, interesting stuff there. But, you're in front of a geological audience and you haven't said anything about what data you're using. Same thing he asked, I guess.
With the data question, we were lucky, we've got 2 mine databases that go back from, when they started exploration all the way through. One of them I can't really talk about. Mount Chalmers I can talk about. So that was our first training data sets, because we could look at what exploration found and go all the way through to what was actually pulled out of the ground. For Goldspot, they're doing good. They're more machine learning. Yes, they're using a training set. My problem with that was, the deposit databases that they use, they don't go out and validate every one of those deposit databases or points, and it comes back to the quality of the data. So we went the other way to use economic gold mines. All of those mines that it's found, it hasn't seen the data for, so it can't say, oh, I've seen that before, that looks like Gympie. And I think with the types of data, as I sort of said before, it's just using the data off QDEX to start with. And then the other systems can actually start to put your own data in it. I'm a little bit coy about speaking too much about it because I don't want to give any secrets away. But it's all very off-the-shelf sort of data, but it does take a long time to put that data in, and I don't think it's a problem we can really solve really quickly in putting that good data in.
One of the examples you used there were shallow, exposed deposits. What sort of issues do you see with making this undercover, three-dimensional sort of version of this? Is it applicable?
I think it is, and we are working on some 3D stuff to try and get some depth and even put some seismic and things like that into it. But again, it comes down to a time constraint in that there's only 2 of us and there's only so many projects that we can do. But I think we can do it, and we can roll it in and use a lot more conventional 3D sort of things on it. As well as the sort of problem that we face is that you've got to learn all these other systems as well at the same time as you're trying to do the research, and how to plot everything in 3D and things like that. So
we might call it a close there. Thanks very much, Warwick. A little steak appreciation. Thanks very much. If I could just say, part of today was about exposing you to new ideas, new thinking, new techniques. And I think that what Warwick just covered was fantastic, because you've got a couple, a small company, who are a startup. That's the Unearthed accelerator involvement in this. A startup company funding it and supporting it out of their own pocket. That's the spirit that you want. People who are going to back themselves have a go. So congratulations.